Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, I know a man who spends most of his spare time researching fallen soldiers from the Great Wars. He also spends most of his holidays travelling to France and Belgium and visiting European battlefields and war graves, and showing other visitors around them. He, and many others like him, uncover facts and resources which often result in unnamed graves finally being identified, and in families and loved ones finally getting closure on what happened to their brothers, fathers, husbands, sons, all those years ago. I recently asked him why he does it. And before he started to answer, his eyes went very wistful, as if he were trying to remember the names of every one of them. And as he started to weave the intricate tapestry that was to be his answer, the thought crossed my mind that this was to be very complex indeed. Excuse me. He said, imagine, if you can, life under a communist regime, where you only go where the party tells you to go, and a trip to the shops for food means shuffling along in a queue in miserable rain, in silence for fear of conversations being overheard. And when you reach the drab shop front, all that you see there are a few week-old potatoes. And you have to tear out half of your dog-eared food ration vouchers just to pay for them. Or perhaps life under a fascist dictatorship, where there is a curfew and anybody caught out after dark lives in fear of being shot or tortured by the ever-present military enforcers, or fearing a knock on the door in the middle of the night and being dragged off to the overcrowded military detainment camps for speaking the wrong language, for having the wrong colour skin, or even for worshipping the wrong deity. His eyes went very sad as he said, think of what it would be like to be a 15-year-old boy, conscripted into an army you know very little about, and shipped off to a foreign country that you know even less about, away from your friends and families, your new home being a trench in the ground that you and others like you dug a few weeks before. It's bitterly cold and raining, and it's very dark. The 6 inches of icy cold water in the bottom of your trench mean that you haven't felt your feet for days. About the same length of time since you had a hot meal or even a hot drink. You are frightened when you think back to the previous night, when a colleague decided to break the rules and light a cigarette. And as he struck the match, the ever-watchful enemy sniper's bullet took off the back of his head in an instant, You've heard that during the next few days there's going to be a big push. And you're going to have to charge down the enemy machine guns, which increases your fear tenfold. And you wonder, will I ever go home? Now fast forward from those war years, 95 years, or even 50 years to the modern times. Those same fields where the trenches were are tranquil now, but at what cost? Those fields of poppies sway proudly in the breeze, as if they know that each one of them represents a crimson bloodstain on the countryside of the millions who lost those lives in those great wars. As he finished his haunting narrative, the realization dawned on me. The reason was far less complex than I had imagined. Indeed, it was beautifully simple, and yet simply beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, in case you think I made this all up for effect, he was to have been in our midst today, but today he is in France, spending time in the further pursuit of his quest. This speech is dedicated to the millions of men, women and children who traded their lives for peace and freedom in the service of their countries and their brethren. It's also dedicated to the few people who care sufficiently enough to give freely of their own time and resources in ensuring that their descendants know where they fit into life's great pageant. The men and women who do it all for the simplest and purest of reasons, lest we forget.